Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. One moment the city was the usual choreography of horns, distant sirens, and the soft percussion of feet on sidewalks. The next, the world outside Kelly Ripa's townhouse was muffled, as if someone had drawn a thick wool blanket over the entire block. Snow came in steady, patient sheets, settling onto stoops and fire escapes, folding itself into the city's crevices and leaving a new, startling geometry in its wake. Kelly stood at the tall parlor window, phone lifted, filming the quiet transformation for her Instagram stories, the familiar thrill of being a witness to something ephemeral, the way light refracts off a wet surface, the way a familiar street becomes unknowable, running through her. She had been awake early that Sunday, because she always was awake early. It was a habit formed over decades of sunrise cues and wardrobe changes, of scripted banter and the itch of deadlines. But this Sunday broke the usual rhythm. Mark lay beside her, a slow, steady breath against the winter cold, and the house, tall brick, stubbornly antique, felt different, as if it were pressing against the storm to reassure itself of solidity. Kelly moved from window to window, filming as if compelled to collect proof. A gust of wind lifted the curtain, then let it fall. A delivery van, bright against the white, trudged like a plodding animal. A line of small, bundled figures, a mother with children clinging to her hand, a man in a yellow scarf, crossed the street with the air of people navigating a new land. She panned the phone slowly, narrating in the warm, energetic cadence her viewers knew. A laugh here, a sharp observation there. The terrace, her rooftop terrace, a private patch of sky in a city that likes to claim everything, was frosting over. Snow lay on top of the covers that shielded outdoor furniture, on the potted evergreens that persisted despite the cold, on the little sculpture of a bird she'd once brought back from a weekend in upstate New York. The camera lingered on the way the snowfall rearranged the world, smoothing edges and softening lines, like an artist painting out the details to reveal the overall shape. Winter storm fern, the news called it, giving the weather an armored name as if to put a personality to what otherwise would be a role. Heavy, insistent, inevitable. The storm had been forecast for days, a steady drumbeat of warnings and suggestions. Stay inside, prepare, keep an eye on elderly neighbors. Kelly had done the things people do when they know the weather will be uncooperative. Bread, milk, a few jars of soup, extra blankets. But there's always a different air to a storm once it arrives, an immediate intimacy. The city quieted. The usual cacophony that had so often been background music to her life dimmed. The townhouses across the way, those stoic sandstone sentinels of her neighborhood, became softened silhouettes, their cornices and roof lines heavy with white. House numbers were swallowed. The familiar became stranger in a childlike, reverent way. Inside, the house was warm. The radiator in the kitchen hummed like an old, loyal beast. The oven had just been used to roast a tray of sweet potatoes for dinner, leaving a lingering scent that felt like comfort. The living room, where she and Mark had built so many domestic rituals, cups of coffee, the flung-open paper, hushed phone calls, was a cozy collage of things that had a history, framed candid photographs from the early days of their careers, a stack of magazines with dog-eared pages, a hand-knitted throw that had been a gift from a friend. The house always carried the energy of being lived in, shoes left by the doorway, a single, abandoned slipper under the sofa, a half-finished crossword on the kitchen table. It made Kelly smile. She pressed record and sent the clip out into the small, shimmering world of her following. There's a particular intimacy to those fleeting videos, a sense of sharing a private corner of life without the pomp and polish of a produced segment. Comments scrolled in, hearts, laughing faces, someone remarking that it looked like Narnia. Another viewer asked if she'd seen the terrace. Kelly flipped the phone camera and filmed the rooftop again, the snow making it into something like a miniature Arctic plain, the furniture a landscape of soft mounts. Her followers loved these glimpses, The human, uncurated moments where a public life touched the quiet of ordinary things. But the storm did more than change the scenery. It rewired the day. Plans were canceled, a scheduled fitting, a meeting moved to Zoom, a trip postponed. The city that never truly stopped tilted for a few hours towards stillness. Kelly and Mark found themselves in that space, a shared, unplanned weekend. They made coffee and moved slowly through the rooms, trying to hold on to the quiet in the way you hold a cup of something hot, carefully, like a small treasure. Mark, who could fall asleep anywhere with the sound of a television on low, read the paper on the sofa while Kelly moved around the house like someone taking inventory of the small joys, the way a certain lamp threw a warm pool of light on a book, the way a stray ribbon from a gift caught on the stair banister, the way dust motes sailed in the beams of light that made their way through the windows. Down the block, Mrs. Alvarez, their neighbor, leaned on her cane and watched the street through her frosted window, a scarf wrapped tight around her head. She had a habit of making soup whenever the weather turned mean, leaving a steaming pot on the small table in her kitchen to cool before she ladled it into bowls for her friends. News of the storm had trickled through the building's grapevine, and someone, maybe the doorman or the building manager, had left a note on the foyer bulletin board checking if anyone needed assistance. In a city where anonymity could be default, storms have a way of knitting people together. By late morning, the snow was thick enough to alter the way sound moved. Voices were dulled, footsteps were muffled into a soft rhythm. Kelly and Mark bundled up, scarf, coat, hats, and decided to step out onto the stoop. There's a particular honest pleasure in crossing the threshold into weather, the cold shock, the bracing slap of air, the small transformation of ordinary clothing into necessary armor. Their block was a study in contrasts. Children in bright snowsuits shrieked with the delighted hysteria of those who have no fear of a world clipped in white. An elderly dog looked at the snow with wary dignity as its owner guided it carefully across the shoveled path. Some neighbors had made quick forts, their laughter threading the street. Others walked purposefully, bundled into the now familiar hurry that happens when a storm is a backdrop to an errand. They climbed the townhouse steps, breathing visible clouds into the air, and the city felt like a different country, a secret version of itself. Kelly took more clips on her phone, close-ups of snowflakes when they dared to land on her glove, slow pans of the roofline where the snow had gathered in soft, impossible arches. Someone shouted across the street and a neighbor waved, their breath like miniature ghosts. Kelly's narrative voice softened. It's hard to be flippant when the world around you looks like a tableau. Back inside, they made lunch out of what they had, cheesy grilled sandwiches, tomato soup from a jar elevated with fresh basil. They ate at the kitchen island, sitting close, trading lines of small talk and the kind of domestic gossip that only people who have lived together for years fully appreciate. The conversation turned inevitably to memories, winters passed in the city, a Christmas in Vermont where their flight had been delayed until the airport snowplow cleared the runway, the first apartment in Manhattan that seemed impossibly large because it had room enough for a dining table. The house held these memories in its walls, the place where their children had left finger-painted valentines on the fridge, the night a power outage had forced them to dine by lantern and candlelight, the time a pipe burst during a particularly cruel cold snap, and they discovered the virtue of patience while waiting for a repairman to appear. Kelly thought about how social media captures only slices. Her Instagram stories were honest, in their way. They were also curated by the choices she made, what to show, what to omit. There was a performative intimacy to the platform, an interaction of celebrity and domesticity that had become a strange, new normal. She liked sharing because it was fun and immediate, a way to connect. But there were private things the phone didn't capture. Late-night confessions in the kitchen, the argument about who forgot to pack the umbrella for a rainy day in Florida, the small reconciliations over cups of coffee. Those were their real weather, less dramatic but deeper.